So, there is a research called the CAS Review. It's about transgender care in Britain, and it's been widely accepted, except by the Union of Doctors, or specifically the British Medical Association's leadership. This is very strange because it seems as though this is a bipartisan issue, as we'll soon get to. It's also an issue that science can be said to have so far been very one-sided on. I know we are all very wary of anyone claiming to have science on their side after the coup, but I have not seen so far any backing for any claims in favor of intervention in kids under 18 on the transgender issue. If you do find any, I'd love it if you send me. I would be very eager to see any proof to the contrary, because so far it's all one-sided, what I've found. Anyway, so essentially this criticism in this article is by Dr. Jackie Davis mostly. And she claims that the doctors' union stance on the CAS review is irrational, has created a fracture between its leadership and the grassroots doctors, and left the medical profession in uproar. The BMA refused to endorse the finding of Dr. Hilary Cass, whose review was published in April and was widely welcomed. It claimed the review contained unsubstantiated recommendations, and its counsel called on members to publicly critique it. Last month, the BMA also called for the ban on prescribing puberty blockers for under 18s to be lifted. Now, puberty blockers don't postpone puberty, they are not reversible, unlike what many people say. No. And they cause lifelong health problems. I believe your bones don't develop as they should, you will have some massive problems in the bedroom and other problems. And the surgeries are possibly worse. They cause lots of problems because they degrade and they become infected, and it's awful. It takes so much time, pain and money to maintain something like that. And there is no research showing that there's any decrease in the rate of transgenders leaving the planet prematurely if you transition them. So there's no benefit that I've seen so far. Obviously, if somebody is over 18 and they want to do it, then fair enough. Some people say it should be over 20 or so, because around the early 20s when your brain finishes developing. But that's beside the point. The main reason I think this agenda is being pushed is for money. You have so much money in every surgery, and sometimes you need multiple surgeries in order to create the new genitals. Not to mention the surgeries to remove the old genitals, all the hormone blockers, all the new hormones for the gender you are transitioning to. There is so much money in this scheme. And the people at the top are pushing it against the will of the grassroots doctors. It says here that the BMA is the only medical organization in Britain to not accept and to find fault with Cass's findings, which were accepted by the last government and its Labour successor. So it's bipartisan. It has said that it wants to carry out its own evaluation. Doctors on the BMA's ruling council who have dared to challenge its criticism of the CAS review have been subject to abuse, and its decision-making body is now shrouded in a climate of fear and intimidation, Davis claims. Writing in The Observer, Davis, who has been a member of the association's council for 18 years, says the BMA now finds itself isolated in its opposition to CAS, and with its reputation and integrity damaged. Other council members, talking on condition of anonymity, have shared similar concerns about the organization's standing and the potential harm it could suffer over its internal strife on trans issues. The toxic atmosphere around the BMA council debate has left some of its 69 members fearful of speaking up to share their views on the issue, Davis says. Its refusal to endorse Cass's findings means the reputation of the entire medical profession is now threatened, she adds. The BMA's position, decided at a council meeting on July 17, has led to around 1,500 doctors, including former heads of medical royal colleges, signing a letter of protest and some long-standing members resigning. The union has adopted its position on CAS because a campaign group called Doctors Vote, which has led the junior doctors' pay strikes, has used political entryism to gain a significant influence over the BMA and dictate its policy, Davis alleges. She also challenges the union's leadership to embrace democracy and put its stance to a consultation of its estimated 185,000 members. If it fails to do this, one would be forced to conclude that it is afraid of the views of its wider membership, she writes. I think that may well be true. I'm not saying science should be a democracy, but allowing the people with the most money and connections to decide everything on science is exactly how we got into all those lockdowns and the mask mandates and everything else that did not work out last time. I think it's the worst policy possible. I also have here, most gender-confused children grow out of it. The landmark 15-year study concludes. This is the Netherlands study. It's very, very large in terms of scope, but it's not the only one. It's just the latest. There have been many others. This is from the National Library of Medicine. And it says here on the results that 83% of the participants reported as desisting, meaning they were no longer considering themselves transgender by the time they finished puberty. This is, I think, ample proof that the best way forward is to not medicalize kids under 18. If you just leave them alone, 80-something% of them will stop being transgender, will not require chopping off the genitals and all those sorts of other medical intervention that will lead to lifelong poor health outcomes. And I think there's also the fact that there's no provable health benefit to the people who won't desist. There's no logical reason to do this. In my opinion, it's just greed. In my opinion, it's 100% greed. We should definitely be protecting children from this, especially, it turns out, young teenage girls, whether it is in school or through social media or through other entertainment, movies and such TV shows. This is being pushed on them, and they are the most vulnerable to it. It's become an epidemic. One girl in a friend group, one teenager, usually girl, adopts this thing, and then the rest quickly follow. It used to be that boys were the majority of people who want to change their gender. Now girls have reached or even surpassed them. And it's just in the latest years, like recent about 4 years. It's strange. If you go back 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, almost nobody talked about it. There was still some information. It was still very plain to see what the truth was. But I don't think there was nearly as much public awareness of this issue, and I'm glad to see that this is changing. I want as much sunlight on issues like these as possible. I am very much for debate, for you doing your own research, making up your own mind. I don't think technocrats and people in power should be designing our future for us. I think if we leave it in their hands, like on this issue, the results will be very poor for us and they will become very rich, which is incidentally exactly what happened with the coup as well. You remember, we had lockdowns, all of the largest corporations made so much money. It was called the largest wealth transfer from the lower and middle class to the super rich. And we turned out to have no benefit. If you compared countries that did not take these measures to those that did, health outcomes were not better. So all you get if you allow the people in charge, the technocrats, the large corporations, the rich and powerful, to make the rules, is they become rich at your expense. You suffer. Your children suffer. It's very much in your hands to be aware of this, to preemptively talk with your kids about it, to protect them from it, to warn them against it, and to support the people who are on your side, who are fighting for you. support the doctors that are fighting to change the rules in favor of common sense, support the politicians that do the same, and withhold support from those that advance agendas that harm you. You could see it in the US with Trump supporters. I remember he was talking about Operation Warp Speed to bring the vaccine in glowing terms as an achievement, and he was booed by a crowd of his own supporters, a huge crowd that waited so long to hear him speak, and they still booed him when they thought he was wrong. And afterwards, he changed his tune about it. He started saying, "We gave you the choice with the vaccine. Whoever wants it can take it." He no longer talked about it as though the vaccine is good. Instead, he said, "We gave you the choice. We had a vaccine available if you chose to take it." And that went fine. You can change your politician's mind, assuming they actually are elected on your vote, assuming they are supported by the public and they are not receiving their money from elsewhere. Personally, getting money out of politics, I think, is one of the most urgent things we need to do. And getting big money getting big money out of medicine as well. It might sound counterintuitive, but in my opinion, the entire medical profession is currently constructed wrong. Basically, the more sick the public is, the more money they make. They are incentivized to care, not cure, to maintain you in poor health as much as possible. A healthy person is a missed customer to Big Pharma. And we are seeing this with transgenders because transgenders are essentially patients for life. If they take the surgeries, if they take the hormones. And Big Pharma is backing this to the hilt. We can't let them get away with this. If anyone is very much your enemy, and I'm not calling for any violence, please don't do anything stupid. But if anyone is very much your enemy on this, it's them. Because they are financially incentivized to act against you. They're financially incentivized. And the solution to this is to prevent them through legal means from buying. For example, I remember the news were all brought to you by Pfizer. Lots of events and entertainment and sports and such brought to you by Pfizer. Prevent them from doing so. Buying public opinion, we should prevent lobbying, and we should very much restructure the medical profession to incentivize keeping the population healthy instead of keeping us as sick as possible. Anyway, I'd love to hear your opinions. If I am wrong by your reckoning, I would love to see any proof. And since I'm still new to YouTube, I would welcome your support, constructive criticism, or anything else you would like to share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.